YouTube Zico in the Goat House is back with one NFL free agent. Each team must re-sign this offseason. We have videos just like this already up on the channel and more to come covering free agency and the NFL draft. So join us. We're almost at 100K subscribers. We'd be much appreciated if you can help us out. Very important to follow us on Twitter as well. Links pinned in the comments for anything you're looking for. Starting with the Patriots, who are an interesting team in this video because you can go, and they have quite a few key free agents, but you can go a couple different ways. Was really deciding between Kyle Duggar, who I went with, and Michael Onwenu, who's a very big-time, important offensive lineman, versatile offensive lineman, playing tackle and guard for them. And offensive linemen usually more important than safeties, but big fan of Kyle Duggar. Really fits today's game, too. Teams using more of the versatile type safeties and more defensive backs in general that can do different things, but more defensive backs on the field at once, kind of turning into college football a little bit. And Duggar, the different things he can do, how he plays up in the box, how he is in man coverage on big-time players like tight ends, and how instinctive he is, the upside that he has. And we know he still fits the defense even though Belichick's gone. That's the reason I went with Duggar, just a big-time playmaker, big-time player in general. For the Jets, this might be a little bold because the bigger name free agent for them is Bryce Huff, who had a big-time breakout year, getting after the quarterback. I like Jordan Whitehead as more of a must re-sign. I think somebody can step up in terms of the edge position. Maybe Will McDonald going forward with Jermaine Johnson. He was a little quiet at first, and this past year he broke out. They're so well coached there. I think they'll be fine. They would love to have Huff back, of course, but Whitehead had a big-time year. I'm sure they can find a replacement. It actually might be a little more difficult than you think. I think if you take him away from that safety group, I think they take a hit. And he shouldn't be overly expensive for them. So I go at Whitehead. For the Dolphins, I'm going to go Christian Wilkins. We did a franchise tag video just yesterday, the most recent video. Check that out. We talked about Wilkins and the Dolphins a bit because it's an interesting situation. They very well could tag him or tag and then extend it. So two reasons why he's on here. Number one is the obvious. He's a big-time player. They would love to have him back. They need to have him back. But I also think they want to avoid keeping him on the tag. If they do tag him, they could extend him before tagging, or they can tag him then work on an extension because they can't afford that tag cap hit, which is all in 1 year. They want to be able to extend him, give him a long-term deal, re-sign him to a long-term deal so you can kind of spread those cap hits out or backload them. So for multiple reasons, it's very important that they re-sign him to a multi-year deal. So that's another reason why he's on this video. Bills got some key free agents, but do they have a big-time guy that, they're in trouble if they don't get him back? I don't think they have that guy, but Mike Hyde is pretty important to them. Good leader, very good football player. Maybe he's declining a little bit, but so I went with him. Is it really going to make or break them? Probably not, but maybe because he's just so important to them. So I went with Micah Hyde, but I guess, the Bills, the bad news is they have some guys they would like to get back. They got to get back. They don't have a lot of cap space to work with, but they don't have that obvious make or break guy they must get back. Going on to the NFC East, the Commanders are an interesting one with this video because the two that stand out are two defensive backs, Cameron Curl and Kendall Fuller. Now they bring in Dan Quinn as their head coach, and he's a very is a defensive guy, and he runs a ton of man coverage, a ton of single coverage. What the Commanders were best at, what they did the most of, a lot of zone, a lot of and split safety, alignments, cover 4, cover 2. When they were in man coverage, a lot of split safety, two man under, so two safeties helping over the top. So Fuller I view as a cover 4 heavy defense. And then Curl, again, can he be that single high safety? Does he have the range, the playmaking ability back there? He could. So the question is, are these big free agents for them, are they fits? Do they desperately need him back now that given who they hired as their head coach, who's a defensive coach? So they become interesting. I know the fans, and it'd be great, great to have Curl back. Probably they're thinking he's a good improving safety. And sure, I could agree with that, but he actually might not be as needed back, and he isn't probably needed, but as much of a need to get back as you originally thought. So Commanders are a little interesting there, but I still go Cam Curl, really good, improving young safety. Giants, tough one. Saquon Barkley or Xavier McKinney? They're both around the same price range, I would guess, in their upcoming contracts. Both very good, both important to the Giants. Who's going to make or break them a little bit more? I'm going to go with the running back. I'm going to go Saquon Barkley, a little bit more important to them. Also, McKinney was so good in Martindale's defense. They now have Shane Bowen in there, so a switch in defensive coordinator. So how good McKinney could be better. He could be about the same. He could be worse. We don't really know. So I'm going to go with Barkley, but again, beware. You don't want to overpay with running backs. So I guess it depends on the price. Eagles could go Fletcher Cox and go DeAndre Swift. The good thing for the Eagles is they don't have like a free agent where like, we have to get this guy back. We have to spend all this money to get this guy back. They don't really have that. Swift, some people would probably go with because Cox is aging. Swift was so good this year. I think they can replace him. Look how good Miles Sanders was 2 years ago. How good Swift was this year. He has durability concerns as well. He was healthy this year. But Fletcher Cox, so important to that organization. Good leader. He did lead the interior defensive lineman in snaps for the Eagles still. So I go Fletcher Cox, but good news, they don't have they're not desperate to get anybody back. Cowboys, they go Tony Pollard. They have some key free agents. Tyrone Smith you can go with because he's a tackle, and I guess do you want to open up either way, I think you need to find a replacement for him now or the future. He's not the same. He's still good, but not the same. Durability concerns. I go Tony Pollard. Again, you don't want to overspend, but you want to open up that big hole at running back to try to find another Tony Pollard, like while he's kind of just getting going. Like he just took over as Zeke is left, so you don't really want that. For the Bengals, I'm going to go T. Higgins. Could go DJ Reader too because he's such a good nose tackle. The difference of the Bengals defense, run defense specifically, with and without him in the game, pretty significant. Now he has durability concerns, multiple injuries this year. So does that drop his value? It's interesting, but you could put him on here. Boyd's he's good, not going to make or break them. I'm going to go Higgins. What they could tag him, I'll be happy with them. With the Bengals, they can re-sign him. I'll be pretty happy with the Bengals. I guess it's always depending on price, but they definitely need him back. Big time playmaker, clutch in crucial situations. Look at the Vikings game, the comeback that they had. I think he was the biggest part of that. So important piece for them, obviously. Steelers don't have like big time key free agents actually, so. They're trying to clear space right now, but the big thing is when they clear and get money, they're going to use that mainly on new guys. They're not going to have to use it. Some teams got space, but they got to use it on bringing guys back, and then they can't really get the new guys. Some teams are lucky to do both. So the Steelers don't have a lot of cap space, but they don't have to spend a lot of money on re-signing guys. But I'll go Mason Rudolph. I don't really plan on him being the starter for them, but just get him back, be a solid QB2 for them. He was pretty big for them down the stretch of the season, but Steelers don't really have one for this video like that. Like they must get back. Browns are the same way, but I go Anthony Walker. They missed him down the stretch of the season, but a pretty solid linebacker for them. A couple other free agents, but there's really none that are like they absolutely have to get him back. So I guess that's good for the Browns. For the Ravens, I'm going to go Justin Matabuke, which is a little interesting because we talked about him in the tag video as well. That was the most recent upload. But I can argue for or against the tag. Like against the tag would be it's a major, because if you do tag him, it's a major, a big cap hit on this year only. There's nothing you can do about it. And then that'll make it so the Ravens really can't do a whole lot else in free agency. Where you give them a long-term deal, you could backload it, you can spread out the cap hits, and then they can do some damage in free agency. So that makes it sound like sign him to a deal. Going against that, while the tag could make a little bit more sense, is another trial deal because he had a big time breakout year. It's still up, and do you value him based off this past year, which is like an elite season, but it was his only elite season. Like he was decent before then, but really only anything close to elite. And now they don't have their defensive coordinator anymore, so it's a little risky either way. But either way, so I almost went Patrick Queen, but again, I don't think Patrick Queen's going to make or break them. They got to get Matabuke back, so that is why he's for the Ravens in this video. For the Bears, going to go Jalen Johnson. He looked like the best corner in football this year. I'm one of those guys that I'm a little cautious with corners actually on how much you pay. If I was in the front, GM, I'd be one that would build through the draft at that position, actually. But if you have a really good corner, I would like to get him back. It depends on the price, though. I'm not going to spend big money at the cornerback position because I do think it's mainly coaching when it comes to that. But how good he was in that Eberflus defense and for the Bears, one of the best corners in football this year. Definitely should look to get him back. Corners for me, beware on overspending, though. Just like the top-tier contending teams kind of prove that as well. For the Vikings, I'm going to go Danielle Hunter over Kirk Cousins. And Kirk Cousins is pretty important because he's a really good quarterback for the Vikings, and they don't have him. They got to find a quarterback. But either way, if they get Cousins back or not, they are definitely on the hunt for the quarterback of the future. So if you don't get Cousins back, and you get an early start for the quarterback of the future, I think they're going to be in trouble at the edge position if they don't get Hunter back. So I'm going to go Danielle Hunter here for the Vikings. So interested to see if they can get neither one of those guys back, because they got two legit. I think they're two in the top 6 for me out of free agents in terms of the rankings. The Packers don't have. They got some guys that are free agents. Savage, Dillon. I'm gonna go Runyon. Got some decent guys, young guys on the offensive line. Try to keep it together. So that was my pick for them. But yeah, they don't really have any guys that are like, if they don't get them back, it's gonna be a meltdown. Like, they don't really have anybody like that. So that's good. It's a pretty good, young, improving team that has quite the future. So they got to clear some space, and they'll do that. I'm curious to see what they can do in this offseason. Lions, I'm going to go Jonah Jackson. I think that offensive line is going to be good, really no matter who they plug in the spot, to be honest. It's just so well coached, and it's just good. So if they lose Jackson, is it going to kill them? Probably not. But it's probably the more important guy to get back. They don't have they got some guys again. They got some guys that are pretty decent free agents, but so that's kind of the good thing for the Lions. I'm curious what they're going to do in free agency because they have a lot of spending money and they're ready to take that next step. For the Titans, I'm going to go Derrick Henry, and they could definitely let him walk, and they hire Brian Callahan, who's more of a passing offense type of guy, going to value the receivers more. And that's great. So maybe they don't want to spend, so if they don't get Derrick Henry back because they didn't want to spend $12 million or $11 million, whatever it is, per year on a running back, it's all right. It's okay, maybe. But at the same time, all those years the Titans are really good, and Derrick Henry was just dominant. Nobody can do anything about it, and they had one of the top offenses the regular season because of it. We're going there was some years where Tannehill was pretty good, and we're going only if they had more better receivers and more of a consistent passing game, this team would be, oh my God, it'd be scary. Or then there was years only if only they had a good the recent years, they only had a good quarterback and they had a better passing game, they took it more seriously. With Derrick Henry, oh my God, it'd be so good because they have Derrick Henry in there. So now they get a pass first coach is gonna value receivers and things like that the passing game finally. And they're not going to have Derrick Henry. It's we're going to be going if they had that Derrick Henry running game on top of this, it'd be scary. So it's kind of going to hurt a little bit maybe if they didn't have him. And it's hard to see him anywhere else. So go Derrick Henry. But again, they have a lot of money, but if he's asking for multi-years and $12 million per year, it might be tough to do that. So it is going to depend on price. Colts, I got to go Michael Pittman. He's been a stud for them. Really good this year, even with, Minshew was solid, but not with the best quarterback on the planet. Could tag. I'm good either way. Tag him, sign him, whatever. I guess it's always depending on price, but I'd probably be good with it either way. So get Michael Pittman back. He is a stud receiver for them. Looking more and more like a do-it-all type receiver, not just like a contested catch guy. For the Jags, I'm going to go Josh Allen, obvious one. They could tag him. They can tag and extend him. We talked about him in the tag video, like Michael Pittman as well, most recent video. Get Josh Allen back, your best pass rusher. It feels like they need a pass rusher. It felt like it during the year. The deadline, we're talking about Jags. Who are they going to get as a pass rusher? And that was on top of having a star pass rusher, Josh Allen. So if you lose him, you're in deep shit pretty much. I know Walker's he's a raw prospect and continue to get better, but you need Josh Allen back. Go, obvious one. Go get him back. Speaking of pass rushers, the Texans, honestly, if they lost Grenard, I would trust them, DeMeco Ryans, to find and develop another pass rusher and get the most out of him. So I actually don't think it'd be the end of the world. But you got a good pass rusher here that's only getting better and was very productive. So be the most important one to get back. But they do have a number of free agents. They could let quite a few of them walk, but just bring in new guys. They have some spending money. So another team I'm very curious to see what they do. Panthers got to go Brian Burns. Could tag him. Maybe you want to tag him, sign Frankie Laveau. Maybe you want to sign them both. Whatever. Burns, I want to sign him if I'm the Panthers to a long-term deal. He still has his best football ahead of him. If you watch Brian Burns, you know that he plays better than what his stats show, and he's had some pretty good statistical years. He's on the brink of getting an insane amount of sacks, even though it might not look like it based on the stats. If you watch him, you know he's a good football player, really good football player, best football ahead of him. You lock him up. 4 or 5 year deal, whatever it may be, you lock him up. Falcons don't have an obvious one. I'm going to go Bud Dupree. I think he's quite underrated. It's just about being healthy, his durability issues. I think he's pretty solid, though. You do need a bigger time pass rusher, even if you get him back or you don't. I'd like for them to get him back, though. He would fit Raheem Morris's defense. Again, no obvious one here for the Falcons, so that's pretty good. Saints don't have an obvious one as well. Andrus Pete's been hot and cold for them over his career. Never really got like ice cold or anything like that, but showed his versatility this year, obviously. So that part of it makes him look a little more important. But the Saints really don't have an obvious guy that like they absolutely for sure need to get back. That's good. They're gonna work themselves out of negative cap space, which they'll do. So we'll see what kind of moves they make. Bucks, I'm gonna go Mike Evans over Antoine Winfield Jr. You could put Winfield Jr. up here. They have a number of other big free agents as well. Winfield, I would like for them to tag, actually. That tag projection, how much it's worth, is going to be around $16.2 million. Talked about him in that most recent video as well, franchise tag video. I think that makes sense, but I think he's going to be asking for more than that. So I would rather just give him the tag for now. Worry about that later. Sign Mike Evans. That's a little more important. Baker Mayfield took big strides last year. They're going to reach a deal. I don't see Baker Mayfield playing for anyone else. The tag, we talked about him in that video as well. That's really not an option in my opinion. I think the Bucks and Baker are going to reach a deal on a long-term deal. Well, I don't know how long, but multi-year deal. And taking Mike Evans away from that is kind of going to hurt that, So I think it's very, very important to re-sign Mike Evans. Chargers, maybe a little bold. I'm going to go Kenneth Murray, their linebacker, who's kind of known as maybe a bust right now because they traded up. They took him in the first round. I still think he has a lot of upside. He's a unique player at Oklahoma. I don't know if Brandon Staley really used him like that. He didn't really get the most out of many players at all, but especially Kenneth Murray. You could put Eckler here. Eckler wasn't great last year. I think you could find a different running back. Murray, I would like to see him in that defense, especially, that new defense, not Brandon Staley's defense anymore. Maybe they use him in different ways. So I think he can be a pretty good football player, moving forward. So I would actually, it'd be a shame if they kind of let him go and he ends up being pretty good. It's like, oh, maybe we should have brought him back, Broncos, I'm going to go Lloyd Cushenberry, who was a solid, had a solid season for them. Obviously, the offensive line I thought was fairly solid this year. So, pretty damn solid, actually. So I want to keep that group together. So I'll go Cushenberry for the Broncos. For the Raiders, they don't have an obvious one either, but go Andre James, their center. Illuminor is their right tackle. Then they can replace him. They don't have a lot, obvious ones. They do have some needs to take care of, though. But it's good they don't have like a long list of guys they got to bring back before they can make some moves with additions. The Chiefs actually have a long list of decent free agents. Chris Jones, L'Jarius Sneed. I'm gonna go Jones though. It seems like Sneed's big time for them. They could tag him, they can extend, they can do both. But they always can find another L'Jarius Sneed. Actually, I mean that's a little bold statement, but they're very good at drafting those guys. I mean Trent McDuffie's another one they drafted, and that's just as good. Maybe going to be better as time goes on here as he develops more and more. Really good corner. Seems like they could find corners. To find another Chris Jones is going to be a whole different story. I don't know if you can do that. He's one of the best football players there is, especially on the defensive line. He takes on double and triple teams that opens things up for the rest of the defense. So super important to them, obviously. So I will go with Chris Jones. Cardinals, is Hollywood Brown going to make or break them? No. But even with their best receiver, Hollywood Brown, they have a big need at receiver. So if you don't have him, it's even bigger of a need. They don't have a long list of big free agents, so that's a good thing. But I think it's ideal to kind of get him back. But I heard he can be a candidate to be overpaid, so I'd be careful, when it comes to him. Seahawks got to go Leonard Williams. I mean, they traded a lot for him on an expiring deal. They need to make the playoffs, and you make a deal like that because you're trying to contend. So that's a big fail. It's already a fail. But if you don't re-sign him, it's a bigger fail. So they got to get him back. He's a good football player. I think he'll fit Mike McDonald's defense as well. So I'll go Leonard Williams for the Seahawks. For the Rams, go with the underrated tackle, Eric Jackson, who played pretty well. He could go Kevin Dotson as well. Jackson's restricted free agent, so we'll see if they get him back. But I think it's pretty important to get him back. Offensive line was definitely better this year than it was a year ago. It was disastrous. And then for the 49ers, I go Juwan Jennings, who, if they would have won the Super Bowl, which, they were close to doing, obviously, Jennings might have been the MVP. So he's sneaky good for them. He'll block, too. I mean, he's important in more than just catching the ball in crucial situations. He doesn't catch the ball a ton, but it seems to come up in clutch situations. But he can block. He's important to that team. You got could put Chase Young, who actually played pretty well in Super Bowl, up here. But, I think they can find a better pass rusher opposite Nick, but more consistent pass rusher opposite Nick Bosa. I would be fine with Chase Young, but I think this is more important, getting Jennings back. Don't overpay, but so that's where I'm at with the Niners. So there you have it. This for all 32 teams. We did like the same style video in different cuts, free agency signings, not re-signings. So a lot of these videos up and a lot more to come. So hopefully you can join us for all of our content. Please subscribe. Check us out on Twitter. Check out our sponsors, GLD Shop, Liquid IV, code GOAT for a percentage off. But that is going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.